to start streaming. It's about to begin. Okay, we're streaming, so meeting can start.
Good evening and welcome to the Radnor Township School District Facilities Committee meeting for Tuesday, January 16th, 2020. Let's start this evening. I see everyone's here. We've got a great group of presenters with comments. Bill Dolan, do you have any comments for the administrative remarks?
I do. I have a few. I just want to mention that the Accessibility and Wellness High School addition and renovation project is in the design development phase. The steering committee's been meeting about every 2 weeks. We met on May 7th and June 11th. The design team, which is Breslin Architects, ELA Engineers, Fidavia, our project management consultants, and myself have been meeting bi-weekly. Our focus right now is on land development and meeting with the township to identify any concerns that may come up in that process, and also setting up meetings with sort of administrative level members to focus on specific requirements in that design phase, like security, maintenance, educational fixtures, fitness equipment, that kind of a thing. So that's moving along. The transportation building, I also just want to mention that we passed rough-in inspections about a week and a half ago, and so walls are being closed in, so it's actually looking like it's turning the corner towards, light at the end of the tunnel. We expect substantial completion in late. That's pretty good news considering that it was on pause for so long. And then I also just want to mention that, Allie's with us. This is, I believe, her last meeting on our board. She's finishing up her service, as our student rep to the facilities committee. So I just want to thank her in the short time that I've gotten to know her for her energy, her ideas, and her service to the committee. And she's going out big tonight because she, Kira, and Becca have really put together a big presentation, which we'll see. So stay tuned for that. And that concludes my administrative remarks.
Yes, we are going to miss you, Allie. You've been a wonderful addition to the team. My time on the board, I've seen different students, and some of them feel like they're there to just sit and listen and observe. And I have really appreciated that you have felt that your role was to contribute, which is actually what we want. So you've been a model participant or committee member, let me say. Next issue on the agenda is public comment. I swear I saw Mr. Petiti on here. Do we have any comments, Mr. Petiti?
Yes, we have one from Roberta Winters.
Okay.
1 second. I would like to commend the Student Coalition for taking the initiative to bring this critical issue to the Facilities Committee for their consideration. Clean energy should be a priority for all, with the school district taking on a fundamental role to model such change in our community. And then there's another public comment that just came in from Lisa Borowski, Vice President, Radnor Township Board of Commissioners. Good evening. I would like to just again thank you all for your thoughtful consideration of the proposed easement agreement to facilitate construction of the TAP trail. This long-planned project is nearing fruition. By unanimous vote of the Radnor Board of Commissioners on June 8th, the revised agreement, as submitted by Mr. Kostofko, which incorporates changes discussed at the last Facilities Committee meeting, was approved. This is the document you have before you this evening. No changes were made by the BOC. Please note the Radnor Board of Commissioners and our administrative staff, led by Township Manager Bill White, are committed to the terms of the agreement and look forward to collaborating with the school district to bring this exciting enhancement to our trail system to the residents of Radnor Township. Thank you for your consideration. And that is all.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from our April 21st committee meeting of the whole board. Did anybody review those and have concerns with what's in them? I didn't, but others might have. I read them, I didn't, there was a compound question. Just the question is whether you had any concerns with them. No, okay, great. So then I think we're gonna move on to action item 4.1, which is the the board action agenda items. There are 2 contracts on here. Bill, did you want to do your best to introduce them? I think these were moved to our agenda from finance. Probably the pools agreement belongs on our agenda in the future anyway, but copiers, I think, was a finance aspect.
Great. So I know Michelle is with us tonight, and she may be able to elaborate on it a little better than I can. But for the IM pools contract, through the end of this month, I believe, we're proposing to renew the contract, which would be a 3-year contract. And I know Michelle has worked to kind of clarify the details on that. I can answer any questions, but I believe Michelle knows a little bit more about it than I do. I can speak to the fact that, and one of the questions that may come up is, we have the pool, but we haven't been using it per se for the last 3 months. But they have been coming in, monitoring it, treating it, keeping it running, because it would be more expensive for us to empty it and try to refill it later than to keep it going right now. So the savings we've encouraged simply with this that are not, being utilized right now. So the, people management and lifeguards obviously we're not being charged for that. And then they're inspecting things as they go. In fact, just a week and a half ago, they found that one of our pumps was down. Our maintenance guys just received the pump the other day, and so they're putting that in this week.
Okay. I had one question on that. We're renewing this for 3 years, and I think one of the questions most of the board members have these days is, are we doing that because it's more financially beneficial to us to renew for 3 years instead of just 1? But also my concern is, with the project pending at the high school, will we be getting some kind of discount or other? I mean, I assume we're getting some kind of discount. If it's not, I don't want to approve this when our pool is closed for renovations.
So I spoke to IM Pools today with that specific question, and they had questions in return. Well, how long would it be out of commission? When would it be out of commission? That kind of thing. I don't think we're far enough along with, a schedule for that project to know those answers. But they said that so there's a clause in there that we can break the contract, but he also said, look, it's a contract, but we want to work with you and do our best with you. So when you know the details, and when you know what your needs are, we will certainly work with you, and we can renegotiate or just come to an agreement at that time.
Okay.
So not a specific answer, but our out would be that we could break contract if we didn't like the terms that they were coming up with when we define, when it would be offline.
And another piece that I think, Bill, you probably don't have the history to. I know there were some concerns. RAC, or the Radnor Aquatic Club, had some concerns with IM pools. And I don't know if we had resolved all that. So I think that's something else we need to make sure we're considering in terms of their monitoring of the pool while we have students in the water.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that history. Was that a recent concern, sort of like in the 2019, 2020?
I think it came up in terms of, and Michelle may correct me, I think it came up in conjunction with the renewal of the RAC contract. There were some questions about why RAC was paying for certain things that they thought we were paying IM pools for some things that they thought they could be doing themselves.
So Sarah, Mike Friel and Mark Brooks, when he was still here,
yes,
I spent considerable time with IM Pools, Todd Woolery and Ted Woolery, going over all those issues where there were concerns, and they have been very responsive and have addressed everything that we had concerns about.
Okay.
So I think all of those things have been resolved.
Okay, that's, and I apologize, Bill, for putting you on the spot. I want to make sure we had that covered, so that's good. Okay.
I appreciate it, Sarah.
Did anybody else?
I can't for some reason pull up that item on board docs, the IM Pools agreement. Is anybody else having difficulty with that?
It was reloaded this evening because there were some typographical corrections to be made.
I don't think it got reloaded.
I think it's there, but it's not opening. So maybe
Yeah,
that
I can't look at it. So
No, Lucinda, I think we also got a separate email, didn't we? From
we
Michelle?
did, but it should still be on board docs so that the public can see it. So if we'll make sure, Lydia, you should have gotten a separate email today.
Yeah, I'm
But
on
it
board
needs to
docs
be on
trying
board
to
docs.
open it though.
So if we could get.
Because, well, just because things often change right before the meeting. So you always want to pull up what's on board docs because that's usually your latest rendition, but I can't pull it up. That's all.
No, it's not.
We'll check that right now.
Okay, thank you. And then did anybody else have any other questions or concerns about the pool agreement?
So it might be worth noting, Sarah, that they have not increased their the straight fee, and in 3 years, so they'll continue at the same rate that we had this past year for the next 3 years. So there may be some benefit, although an RFP did not go out for this, there may be some benefit in locking in now, because if we go out for an RFP in a year, things may be certainly a lot more expensive. I don't know that, but it's a thought.
No, that's helpful. I appreciate you volunteering that information. Okay, if nobody has any questions about IM Pools,
I'm on this.
the Ricoh Copier contract, Michelle, did you want to give a brief explanation of that?
So this was actually supposed to be on the board agenda for finance back in May. And because there was concern with the COVID-19 closure, we went back to Ricoh and said, we need some alternate proposals. We need a 1-year extension. We need a 3-year extension, and we need a 60-month extension. And we'd like to look at the contract in terms of a per price instead of having a maximum amount of copies and then an overage. So I have to thank Scott Hand, who just came on. He had just done a contract renewal in Kutztown, and he kind of took the lead on this. And I just reached out to Ricoh and said, can you give us some alternate pricing? And between he and I and Byron McCook, we reviewed the proposal and did some tweaking to it. And I apologize that those documents just got put out today. We were putting stuff out on Friday because we wanted to make sure that you guys had the documents, but we just received the other revised documents today. And so we updated those, the spreadsheet. And I think what we have looked at is really a great savings for Radnor Township School District, especially considering the COVID-19 closure. And I do really want to thank Scott for taking the lead on this, just because he had just done it in Kutztown. And I think he can talk a little bit more about why we are recommending the 60 months versus a 36 or a 1 year.
Sure, I'll jump in. Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everyone. So that was our initial concern, and I appreciate Michelle sharing that out, that we had looked at that initial 60-month lease and wanted to say, are we really happy? Are we really satisfied? Are we really getting everything that we need? So we decided to pump the brakes just for a moment to reapproach Ricoh and get some more detailed information from them as far as our average monthly volume and are we getting the most for our value. So when we had reapproached them, we did ask them for what would a month-to-month look like, what would a 1 extension, to give us that time to potentially go out to bid, and then give us your best 3-year and 5-year, 36 and 60 month as well while you're at it. So we started renegotiating with them, and I think what they came up with was something that is actually pretty good for us. So what they came up with was being able to supply all of our current multifunction printers. They also added in all of our current printers, the desktop printers that we have in there as well. And as Michelle said, we're actually paying by the print, so we're not paying on overages. We were overpaying a little bit in there as well, and that isn't always good. But we also added in the ability to do card scanning, Office 365 and Google integration. So these will actually be enhanced devices that are coming to us. And our current costs run us about $204,000 per year. And when they came back with their pricing, where we actually ended up was about $130,000 on the 60 month. So that's an annual savings of about $74,000 or a little over $1 million per the length of that contract. And when we had taken a look at the numbers more discreetly and granularly, it came out to about $180 per device. Right now we're paying about $500. The last bid that I did with another vendor came out to about $600 a device. So I think if we went out to bid, which we could certainly do, extending our lease for a year, I don't know if we're going to get the same pricing. Ricoh came back with some really aggressive pricing that provides continuity of services. Most people in the district, I think Michelle can speak to as well, have been very satisfied with the product and with their service. And I think the enhanced service that they're going to give us with automatic toner replenishment, the ability to have a loaner device on site if it's not fixed within 3 days, so it's not always an extension. Well, we're going to get repair. They're going to provide a loaner device there. So they've made some of those concessions for us, plus the ability to have some deferment on our COVID instances. So should we go out for 3 months, should we not start up school, given one of those 5 scenarios that we've laid out, they've offered to actually defer some of those payments. So we're not paying during the time that we wouldn't be using them. So we really felt that that was the best of breed. And typically we don't like to jump into our 60 ourselves, but given this pricing, it's almost pricing that we can't ignore. And given that we've been happy with them, we'd like to encourage the board to move forward with this.
Thank you. That was really helpful. I really appreciate it. And to people who don't know, Dr. Hand we hired him a while ago. He's finally joined us. He's going to be succeeding Dr. McCook as our Director of Technology. And I appreciate that your first days on the job, you jumped in and were able to find this kind of savings for us. The one thing, it showed up in the blue presentation that you just showed, but I just want to make sure other board members on the committee noticed this.
Sure.
The $70,000 that's on the agenda is the fixed cost. On the presentation that Dr. Hand gave us, because we're going to be paying essentially for all printouts, the actual cost we're projecting for this contract is $130,000. Now, if we, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we greatly exceed our standard printing amounts, that could go up. If we print a lot less because of school closures or because we go green in other ways, that cost will be down. So the $70,000 is kind of the bottom amount, but it is likely to be closer to $130,000.
That's correct.
That's clear to everybody? Okay, I just wanted to make sure somebody didn't see the budget next year and say, why are we spending double what we agreed to pay? So that's where that is. Okay, does anybody have any concerns about these contracts, moving them forward for board approval next week? Okay, so then let's move on to item 4.2. A warm welcome to our students from the Climate Action Group. I'm not sure which one of you is taking lead on this presentation this evening, but if you want to start by introducing yourselves, that would be really helpful, I think, to everyone here, but also to anyone watching.
Yeah, sure. I'm Allie Bauer. I'm a rising senior. I'm Becca Zajac, and I can do the screen share. Just give me a minute. My first time doing a screen share. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, here it is. Allie, you ready to start? Yes. Right, do you want to click present? Oh, is it not in present?
No.
Oh, it says present for me. Okay.
And while you set that up, I know there's others joining you as well. So want to take a minute to introduce the other students as well as part of your team there, Allie and Becca. They can introduce themselves.
Hi.
Sorry.
If I could go. Sorry. I'm Ellie Davis. I'm a rising junior, and next year I'm actually going to be the student representative to the Government Relations Committee on the school board. So I'm really excited for that position. And this is today, if some of you don't know, it was Penn Environment's Lobby Day. That happened virtually, and I'm an intern for Penn Environment. So I went to 5 different lobby meetings today with different representatives pushing for climate change and renewable energy. So this is my 6th meeting of the day with this topic. So looking at some of the representatives that might have been less willing to support the move to renewable energy, it's really important to have support in local districts. So that's what we're looking for here.
Hi, my name's Kira Lee, and I'll also be a senior next year. Allie and Becca will be doing the presenting today, but yeah, just wanted to introduce myself.
Thank you, Kira.
Hi, my name is Ashley Callan. I will also be a rising senior.
Hi, I'm Christina Sa. I'm going to be a senior next year, and I just wanted to come on this call to show my support for the cause.
Hi, my name is Claire McDonald, and I'm going to be a rising senior as well.
Hi, I'm Megan Subak, and I'm also going to be a rising senior.
I'm Erica Clark, and I'm going to be a junior in high school. And I also just wanted to show support for Becca and Allie and all the hard work they put into this.
Okay. Allie and Becca, are you all ready to start?
Yeah, does it show?
It does. It shows it in the right
Okay,
mode.
awesome. Okay, so we want to thank you so much for your leadership among the pandemic, and also thank you for the opportunity to present our work to you today. I'm Becca Zajac, and I'm a rising senior at the high school. Allie and I are both rising seniors. For some background, Allie and I co-founded an environmental club at the high school in our freshman year. We started with small-scale local projects like composting and stream cleanups, and over the last couple years, our projects have scaled up. We've helped drive the Ready for 100 initiative past approval and into implementation with our student support last year. In November, we attended a renewable energy training where we met Sierra Club leaders and got introduced to the Climate Parents organization. Since then, we put together a group called the Climate Students. Since then, we put together a group called Climate Students to collaborate with the Sierra Club, research renewable energy, and reach out to community organizations. Members of Climate Students are here watching to show support, as you've seen in the introductions. I just want to say that this is no school project. No one asked us to do this. All of us students spent months working on this amid school, sports, and more, because we are so passionate about resolving climate change. Allie, are you there?
Allie, I think you're muted.
Thank you. We want Radnor School District to commit to 100% clean energy, to a clean electricity by 2030, and off of fossil fuels for heating, cooking, and transportation by 2040. Everything is at stake: our health, our infrastructure, and our environment. As the generation that will inherit the earth and everything on it, we are concerned and want to take actions that ensure a cleaner, healthier future for everyone. In 2018, the International Panel on Climate Change reported that we must transition off of fossil fuels in the next 12 years to prevent catastrophes all over the world. This threat endangers the livelihood of every community in Pennsylvania, particularly the futures of younger and upcoming generations. Pennsylvania is already seeing decreased snowfall and warmer temperatures, which are predicted to intensify if we do not act now. The vote for this resolution is to endorse our idea, not to start the immediate process of implementation. We will have 10 to 20 years to figure out the logistics,
but today we are planting the seed and setting a goal.
So, what is clean energy? Clean energy is derived from wind, solar, or geothermal sources, all of which have significant health benefits associated that can address pressing environmental justice challenges, both locally and nationally. For our project, we want to focus on installing solar energy while tapping into geothermal wells that we already have on 4 out of 5 of our schools.
Radnor Community Commitments. Our township has already committed to 100% renewable energy by 2035 via an initiative called Ready for 100. Even though this resolution, which passed in the fall of 2019, sets the goal that Radnor Township buildings will achieve clean energy, the Ready for 100 resolution contains nothing specific to schools in the Radnor School District. With our Climate Students Resolution, we want to keep up the momentum that Ready for 100 started and follow their lead in enacting positive change, this time focusing on benefiting all Radnor schools. Here is a complete copy of our resolution. It was also sent to you as a PDF earlier today. In our resolution, we are asking you to establish the goal of achieving 100% clean, renewable energy by 2030 and in all energy sectors by 2040. School districts big and small are making this commitment. Our district spends a great deal of money on energy, and there are affordable finance pathways for paying for energy efficiency, as well as for replacing fossil fuel heating over the 20-year life of this resolution. We are very excited about seeing this resolution passed, and then working with the district to craft an implementation plan. As outlined above, there is no rush in this process as we have built in over a year to come up with an implementation plan.
School districts play an important role in energy consumption. American K-12 schools spend $8 billion a year on energy costs nationally. They emit as much CO2 as 18 coal-fired power plants. Pennsylvania's energy mix once consisted mostly of coal, which is now on the decline. Nuclear and natural gas make up most of Pennsylvania's energy mix, with wind and renewables barely contributing. We can be a part of the rise in renewable energy, with our school representing a better Pennsylvania. Even though the township did not address school districts in the Ready for 100 resolution, making this commitment can help our school district play a key role in implementing our township's goal. With that, if our school district does make this commitment, it integrates our township with our school district and further revolutionizes Radnor.
For Radnor schools, the transition to renewable energy will be nothing but positive. This project saves money with power purchase agreements, which is when a third party provides initial project coordination systems with little to no cost to us as the consumer. The third party installs and maintains the solar panels, and they give you a reduction on your monthly energy bill. More information on PPAs is in our FAQ document that we previously emailed you all. When our school district saves money, it can be reinvested into classrooms and teacher salaries. It also improves indoor air quality and the health of students and staff, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, develops community resilience in times of grid failure, creates hands-on STEM learning opportunities, and strengthens the district's role as a climate leader.
This resolution builds upon the amazing sustainability efforts already being made. Radnor is making great strides in creating green learning environments. Some of the highlights include rain barrels, water bottle refilling stations, motion sensor lights, low-flow faucets, and recycled glass floors. There are even more sustainable successes at our schools. These are just examples that Allie and I have observed. Likewise, many of our schools already use clean energy. Right now, all of our elementary schools, as well as the middle school, utilize geothermal wells for heating and cooling. Radnor Elementary School also has 56 active solar panels. Getting our relatively small district to 100% clean energy over the next 20 years is both feasible and affordable. It also sets an incredible example for other school districts around the state and the nation.
These achievements are amazing, but we still need to commit to 100% to ensure a total transition to clean energy over the next 2 decades. School districts that have already committed to 100% clean energy include districts in Los Angeles, San Diego, Madison, Salt Lake City, Lime, and several districts in the Minneapolis metropolitan area. There are active campaigns in districts including Boise, Seattle, and Miami. More than 160 cities, as well as major businesses such as Apple and Google, have also made 100% commitments. Helping school districts do the same is an important investment in the health and well-being of our youth and the communities. With this, our commitment can help achieve statewide goals to position Radnor as an even more influential district. And we aren't alone. In 2018, the Sierra Club released a poll that revealed that more than 7 in 10 Pennsylvania voters would vote in favor of a goal generating 100% of the state's electricity using clean and renewable sources like solar and wind by 2030. On this map of Southeast Pennsylvania, stars represent the individual schools that have already adopted solar energy. These schools show that what we want to accomplish is possible.
Our goal has been achieved in school districts close to us. Colonial School District in Montgomery County annually saves more than 1.2 million pounds of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. CSD is projected to save more than 1.5 million over the course of the 20-year agreement with no capital reserve. Governor Mifflin School District in Berks County did not contribute any capital reserves towards the initial cost of installation. Instead, they entered a 25-year PPA, power purchase agreement. They are expected to save $800,000 over the course of the contract. Quakertown Community School District in Bucks County used a 20-year power purchase agreement. They expect to save $1.5 million over the next 20 years. After the agreement expires, the school district will own the panels and meet half of the high school's electricity needs free of charge. Great Valley School District in Chester County is an example of a district buying a system up front. They had a total cost of $1 million. The district paid half of the upfront cost and made up the rest with a grant. They're expected to save $80,000 per year, making $1.2 million over 15 years because of this investment. With no capital outlay, who wouldn't want to save $1.5 million or more? Even if it's a low % of our budget, who doesn't want a chance to save money while contributing to the solution of climate change? We have a community support video that I can play. Let me know if there are any sound problems.
I support 100% renewable energy because we want to invest in our future. I support 100% renewable energy because it provides us with clean forms of energy that don't pollute our fragile environment. Go green. I support 100% renewable energy because we only have one Earth. I support 100% renewable energy because I want to live in a safer, cleaner, healthier environment. I support 100% renewable energy because climate change is detrimental to the environment.
I support 100% renewable energy because I want to leave a cleaner and greener world for my children.
I support 100% renewable energy because I support positive change. I support 100% renewable energy because there is only one other Earth. I support 100% renewable energy because global warming is real.
I support 100% renewable energy because we will continue to need our very own planet.
I support 100% renewable energy. I love the Earth.
I support 100% renewable energy because we need to do something about climate change because climate change is real.
I support 100% renewable energy because I want a cleaner and healthier world for my children.
I support 100% renewable energy because hot weather stay in summer. I support 100% renewable energy because I want to
Hopefully you enjoyed that video. It was fun to make.
Just, it's absolutely so nice to see the students in our hallways and in our buildings. So that was also a special piece of it as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a while.
That's right. I was going to give you credit for, you know, all the fake backgrounds since we've been closed and putting that together.
So again, we're thankful for your leadership during the COVID crisis. Many districts around the country are converting to clean energy primarily with cost savings as a key driver. We believe now is an essential time to pass this resolution so we can begin planning a finance pathway that will benefit our schools and community. We'd like to see this resolution passed this summer, then we can work with the Facilities Committee and district officials to move forward. After this upcoming vote, the school board still has over a full year to come up with an implementation plan to reach our goal and 10 to 20 years to carry out our plan.
The time is now. For the first time in our history, Pennsylvania has the opportunity to move away from fossil fuels and set our communities on a sustainable path. It's an audacious but achievable goal that requires bipartisan leadership and new legislative champions. In addition to others across the state, our district has the potential to be a nationwide climate leader. I care about this project because I want to ensure the future health of the environment in our unique and beautiful town.
With so much support from your students, will you join us?
Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you will consider voting with us. We will open up a discussion now if anyone has any questions or comments.
Committee members, does anyone have any questions they'd like to raise?
Sarah?
Yes.
I don't have any questions. I just want to voice my support for what our students are asking us to do. And for me, this is a really high priority that when I thought about it, we have so many things going on for the administration, so many initiatives. And then I started to think for myself about the priorities that they would take. And to me, I think that this is a very high priority. And I would bump it above some of the other projects that we're looking at, because I don't think we can task ourselves with too much, but I think that this should be a mindset in our district, and I think it should pervade some of the other projects that we're doing, because it does kind of go hand in hand with looking at we're looking at the capacity in the district. We're doing a huge renovation project, and I think this should be an overlay for how we think about doing this work that we're going to undertake already. So I would like to not only support it, but bump it up in the priority scheme for our committee and our district.
Nancy or Liz?
Yeah, I just want to congratulate all of you in the work that you've done in pulling this together. The presentation was very thorough, and I know it's evident that you put a lot of work into this, not just for this presentation, but just in general with everything you've accomplished so far in the last year or so. I fully support this as well. I think the timing is right in that, knowing from a facility standpoint, we have undergone a feasibility study looking at all of our properties, and we will be over the course laying out what we need to do. And so having a year to really put together an implementation plan to meet those goals of 2030 and 2040, I think good timing. And I think to Lydia's point, we can absolutely incorporate some of these elements and kind of have our hat on thinking clean energy when we kind of move forward on all the initiatives that we're currently working on.
Mrs. Duffy?
I would echo everything Mrs. Solomon and Mrs. Monahan said. It's such a thoughtful presentation. It's apparent of how much work, and what I really applaud you for is that beyond just looking at our school district, the idea of talking about the synergy with our township. You know, we live in a unique township where our school district is our township. So I just love that you brought that element in to say that, you know, they made a commitment and now we'll make a commitment. So philosophically, I'm 100% on board. I guess the only thing I would say, and agree that this is a priority, and I think that the timing is right because of the infrastructure project and because of other looking at all our buildings. But I guess one question I would have to other board members and to Mr. Dolan is really, you know, a capacity in terms of timing in a resolution. I want to make sure that what we're putting forward, we can achieve. And I know there's a lot on the docket, and while this is a priority, you know, the November 1, 2021, I'm really looking to the administration and to our team. Is that feasible for putting together, you know, what we need to do in order to put together and then the reporting mechanism. So I guess I'm looking more at kind of like what the deliverables are, and making sure that we're adopting a resolution that we can live by and achieve. But philosophically, in terms of committing to clean energy and moving towards that as a district, I am 100% on board.
Yeah, I would say, I know firsthand, and I think a number of you on the call know firsthand, that these young women are tenacious. They have made sure they got on all of our calendars. They interviewed us in advance. They identified our concerns, and they've dealt with just about everyone. I absolutely wholeheartedly support the sentiment and the efforts here. I also, as someone who's working with Mrs. Monahan on the steering committee for the Radnor High School project, realize how much time that takes, not just as a board member, but I know it takes a lot more time for our Director of Operations, Mr. Dolan, and the rest of the administration attending those meetings, having side meetings, following up on all of that. It is a huge investment of time. And a thought that I had, and I would leave it to Mr. Dolan or Mr. Batchelor maybe to give us feedback. I know that, so we have the project at the high school, but then we separately have this feasibility project. And we did roll into the contract with our architects for the high school infrastructure project, which is only part of the building, that we would try to address environmental issues and make this a green-friendly addition and adjustments. We aren't currently planning to retrofit the high school, which is the building probably that's the biggest violator of the renewable energy idea. But we have the feasibility study coming up, and that's the presentation on that I think is coming either later this summer or early in the fall. And I'm wondering if there's a plan to have some kind of task force or steering committee for that. And it would make sense to roll this in as part of that, rather than having separate meetings and separating out, actually incorporating this green idea into our feasibility study and the longer term capital plan that we hope that'll generate.
I thought of that too. I thought that we should put our student leaders in touch with the architects, with the Breslin team, so that they can.
Well, I think have them attend, and if there's a task force.
Well, I was thinking they have details that they're actually more up on than really anybody that we could put on the team, that if they could talk directly with the architects. But I mean, another way to achieve it is to have a task force. So I was thinking along the same lines.
And we do, I think that's actually, both those points are great points. And first off, students, it's what a pleasure to have you join us. What a thorough presentation. You know, all of you, the initiative of the club and all that you've done with the club and how it's grown, and that you've gotten to a point that you're bringing it here to the board. And yes, Becca and Allie, I mean, I think I Zoomed with you a month or so ago. You were very impressive, and the whole team are very impressive with how organized and how you've gone about this. And I really appreciate that. So it's wonderful. So well done. I think the ideas that Mrs. Dunn and Ms. Solomon were just suggesting, I think is a good idea. We have what this feasibility study is that we have engaged with an architectural firm to look at all of our buildings district-wide. And this isn't something that we do every year. And actually, it's been quite some time since we as a district have done a district-wide feasibility study. So we engaged in that just really before going out in January. We engaged with this feasibility study. It's been delayed a little bit because of the COVID closure. And we had planned to put together a task force or a committee. Really wasn't going to be called a task force. It was going to be a committee that would be involved in hearing what are the architect has found, what are the pieces to the feasibility study, and then how does this feasibility study data information help us develop a 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan for our facilities and our buildings based on the age of the buildings, based on what is needed in the buildings, also based on our enrollment. We're also looking at our enrollment and what's going on and how is our district growing or decreasing, or where is the enrollment going in our district. So I actually think the timing, I think Sarah, you're 100% right. The timing is perfect to, I think, roll this in as part of that discussion. Now, the problem is you got, and I talked to Allie and right away we talked about this when Becca and Allie first brought this up. I know you guys want to vote right away to see the board vote, tonight or next week. And here's one of the things that happens. The school board is really thoughtful. We as administration all try to be very thoughtful about how we go about this and how do we do this. And so I think rolling this in and being part of that feasibility study gives it the best shot for longevity, gives it the best shot to have an impact. And we could certainly involve some of you in those discussions or involve you with that committee as well as we move forward, especially Ellie, if you're going to be taking over. Ellie, you're joining facilities moving forward. Is that what you had mentioned or no?
No, I'm joining the Community Relations Committee, the Government Relations Committee.
Oh, your government relations. Sorry, I apologize. So, but we'll figure out. So we'll have a student with facilities as well. And so this will be just a great opportunity to do that. And then we can look to see and understand when do we want to set, when will be those opportunities for a discussion and opportunity for a discussion on a resolution as well.
All well said. And yes, absolutely. Team, it was an amazing presentation. And Mr. Batchelor mentioned that meeting from about a month ago. And we really were, I think we were upfront with you that this was a tough thing to, there were a lot of obstacles, and you addressed, I think, every one of them, in a way to help move this forward. So I commend you on that. Yes, Ms. Duffy had a great point about the timing for this, and it's a lot of work to vet everything that you've put forward to make sure that it is achievable, because we wouldn't want to just go forward and agree to something that we're not sure we can actually guarantee or put into place. But I think it needs to become part of the fabric of all these projects that we're doing, all these studies. So as Mr. Batchelor said, I think that feasibility study does sound like a good place to kind of incorporate these so that it stays in our forefront, in our minds, in all the decisions and studies that we are doing going forward. Mrs. Solomon mentioned the high school project, and that's a good concern too. That it's tricky because although the project is huge, it is attached to a much huger building that can't be sort of retrofitted without tearing it down to make it a net zero in any way that I see feasible without, quadrupling the budget that we're talking about. But it doesn't mean that can't be part of the feasibility study. So, I guess we have to define what, does the resolution get changed? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, I think the resolution that they're looking for the board to act upon is also just a commitment to a concept is what I heard. And I think that was, it's really a smart way to go about this. And I think that commitment to a concept is something that can be talked about very early as part of the feasibility study. And I think it could make sense to tie it into the feasibility study. And then I think it just gives more of an opportunity to really anchor this discussion in our 20-year plan And is this a concept that we as a district want to commit to as we start to develop this 20-year plan? And that could be discussions that happen, as early as, this fall, as we start looking at that feasibility study.
So, yeah, and the only concern I had, I just want to make sure we don't, I want to take another look at this. I don't want it to seem like we're setting up, if we want to try and incorporate this into the broader plan and not work in separate parallel paths, which may create communications issues and gaps. I don't know, Allie and Becca, if you want to think about it a little bit. I want to think about it a little bit, whether we should adjust the resolution to say that it will become a part of the district's capital plan. It'll get incorporated into the feasibility study rather than set it up as a separate task force, because I actually don't think that's as helpful to the cause as creating it as an element of the capital plan. But I don't know that we need to recommend to make that decision tonight. I think in concept that this works to take to the full board. Does anyone disagree? If you feel you need to really hammer it out here, I'm happy to work offline.
I just have a question to the students. Are they clear on what the feasibility and capital, because you're using two different terms?
Oh, that's a good point. I'm sorry.
I just want to be clear that they understand what this is, because, okay.
So I think it would be helpful. Ken or Bill, do you want to give a better explanation?
Yeah, just that when we refer to the term capital, we're always just talking about each year we have expenses that are building, making sure that the capital expenses of whatever fixes and repairs into our building. We took the extra step now, as I mentioned, to do a feasibility study, which is really looking at all of our capital belongings, all of our buildings, all the things that we own in the district, the facilities, and looking at what is the status of those buildings, and then what is the long-term plan for upkeep? When are boilers going to need to be replaced? When does air conditioning, HVAC, all of those pieces, and then also enrollment. So that's when we say we do interchange. I think that's a good point, Mrs. Duffy, about capital and feasibility of the structure. We do kind of interchange those terms, but that's what the feasibility study is, looking at all these capital assets of our buildings that we have. And I think that, again, I think this is the discussion we could have. One of the things I told Becca and Allie when we first met with them a month ago, I said, listen, the board, the first time the board hears things, we don't usually act on things the first time we hear things. And that it usually takes us a little time to digest things and to figure out where it's the best place. This is for the first time for this being brought to the board. I think it was done exceptionally well. I think that we have a lot now to work on, both administratively and as a board, to figure out how we want to move forward with this, how we want to maybe incorporate into feasibility study, what type of resolution would we want to do. I know the students are eager to have, just something passed last week, but at the same time, I think we need to take a little bit of time now to figure out how this fits into the longer plan. And it's by no means, by looking to see how it fits into feasibility, is suggesting that this isn't something that, at least I'll speak for myself administratively, but what I'm hearing from board members and what I've heard from other board members over the year, this is a topic that our board wants to engage in. This is a topic that our administration wants to engage in, but we want to figure out how to do it well and do it right. So that would be the plan, I think, to move forward, is to take some time to figure out how it fits best with the feasibility study and what type of resolution would we want to do in the future and how should that resolution look. Does that make sense? And students, would you be okay with that?
And I'm sorry, Mr. Batchelor, can I kind of add to that a little bit? Because I see some faces that look a little, I recognize them as faces I see from my teenager. They're a little bit doubtful. Typically what the district has had is a 3-year capital plan. That's what Mr. Batchelor was explaining. And it's a plan, in the next 3 years, we're going to replace these sidewalks, this roof, this plumbing. We need to build extra classrooms. We're going to reconfigure some building, those kinds of things, the HVAC, that stuff. And what we had decided earlier in this school year, and the board had set as a district goal, was to actually say 3 years out isn't sufficient. We need to have a better long-term plan. And we want to plan for 20 years, which actually coincides beautifully with your 10 and 20-year plans that you're proposing for us. So the thinking really is, if we feed this program that you're proposing, right? If we feed this plan right into our capital plan, we make it part of that 20-year plan. And I will be very honest with you, what we plan for each year doesn't necessarily happen in each year, but at least it's written down. It's something we can hold ourselves accountable for. It's something we try to budget for. So I think it actually has a lot more it has a lot more likelihood of sticking and becoming part of the thread of how the district does things in being part of that plan. So this is not at all a brush off. This is really actually, I think, a way to tie it into and make it part of what future boards are thinking about and future administrations are thinking about, because it's written into the way we plan to do things.
So I want to just maybe push back a little bit on this. I don't know why we can't craft a resolution that really does support, we're all saying a similar thing, which is that we support this and we realize it's complicated and we want to do it thoughtfully so that we don't commit to something, that's impossible. But why can't we craft a resolution that basically captures what we're all saying, which is that we want to do this? Why not make that commitment and write it in such a way that, the concerns about the actual details are, that there's room to take into consideration the devil is in the details here. And so, I'm not in a position to say, which type of fuel we can switch to at what point. I mean, I think that's what we're all afraid of, committing to something we don't understand. But why can't we craft it in such a way that's expressed and that concern is encompassed in our resolution?
That was actually what I was proposing. I didn't mean to be unclear. I actually think that, I think the first paragraph of their resolution works for me. I don't want to set up I don't want it to sound like we're setting up a separate task force by November 1st. I would rather it say something along the lines of, and I want to talk to the administration, make sure it works for them, but something along the lines of, to that end, we will incorporate the concepts of reducing energy consumption, et cetera, into the capital plan that the board considers in the 2021, the 20-year capital, those kinds of things. I just want to tweak it to make sure it reflects that. And I think, I certainly think it's wonderful to include a student from this group on that steering committee. We certainly have had students on other steering committees that we work on, task force. But I'm just saying, it's already 8:30 and I know the board has executive session after this, so I didn't want to try and craft it in this meeting. But if you disagree with that, tell me now. I'm happy to work with you, Lydia, too.
No, I didn't understand. I didn't understand that you were basically saying the same thing. I'm very happy with that. Yeah.
Okay.
And I should just add, to our student coalition that, and Sarah, you're just talking, Mrs. Dunn, you're talking about that second paragraph and that task force. I have a meeting with the architect who is, the lead in our feasibility study tomorrow morning. It's about something different, but I can bring this up to him and maybe schedule a time to talk to him about how this may or may not, weave into that feasibility study. I'm sure you'd have to check what the contract and the commitments are to that and see if this would change that in any way, but that's a big start, and we could start as early as tomorrow having that discussion. And
I think that would be helpful.
okay.
Can I make one other suggestion on this point? And I did ask Allie on chat. There were additional materials that the group sent to the committee members and certain other administrators who were on this call earlier this evening, a little after 5. And I think it would be good for the community if we could post those additional materials on board docs. I think it would be helpful to them to see what the board received. Thank you to Mrs. Monahan for pointing that out. Mr. Batchelor, I think they did copy Mrs. Calderoni. So if you would just confirm with her that it would be good if those could go up so that so there's a record of it and people can go back and see all the extra materials we got. That would be helpful.
Yes.
Okay. Did anybody else have anything else they wanted to, any other committee members want to raise anything else about this issue before we move on with the agenda? Becca.
I just have 2 clarifying questions.
Yes.
So Mr. Batchelor, you brought up the question about like what type of resolution we would want to adopt, and I can probably meet with you later about this, but I was just wondering what different types did you have in mind? Like, what do you mean by type of resolution?
Just what Mrs. Dunn was just saying, like, how do we want to craft, this language on the task force? How do we want to craft how this fits with our feasibility study?
Okay. Great, thank you. And I said 2, but I just meant 1. And Allie and I and the other members of our team here will probably schedule some additional meetings with you guys and clarify some stuff and just move forward with this. And we really appreciate all this feedback that you're giving. It's awesome. Thank you for your support.
Becca and Allie, thank you both again. Fantastic job. And please do reach out and follow up. I know you will. I think you used the word audacious, and you guys are, and this is great. And so, let's stay in touch this week and keep this thing developing.
I also want to say to the students, keep the pressure on you guys, because you are doing the right thing. The climate change issue is, first and foremost, if we don't get that right, really everything else we do doesn't matter. So I want to commend you guys for your insight, and I want to support you for what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you so much.
So I think I heard support generally from the committee, but I just want to confirm that you're all okay with if I work with Mr. Batchelor, Mr. Dolan, and the students to revise the resolution to incorporate it into the capital planning program. Okay, so we will move that to the board next week. Thank you, ladies. You're welcome to stay on, and you're welcome to drop off if you have other plans for the evening. The next item on the agenda is 4.3, the approval of the easement agreement for the Radnor Tap Trail extension. And I think we had an extensive presentation on this last month. We got a nice comment from Mrs. Borowski, and I've heard rumors, but I don't know who's presenting this. Is that you, Mr. Christofko?
I certainly can. The documents that are on the agenda, the Facilities Committee's agenda tonight for review and recommendation to the board for approval, are the 2 easement agreements that the Township Board of Commissioners approved. And in addition to that, there's a third document, which is a document that PennDOT requires, which is merely just a waiver of rights. It's a document that's mostly used in the connection of condemnation of land that says that we understand that by entering into the easement agreement and getting all the benefits associated with that, we're giving up our right to claim just compensation had the township actually come in and condemn the land. So it's a pretty simple, straightforward document. But the 2 main documents for the board to look at are really the permanent easement agreement and the temporary easement agreement. And a couple of points I would like to make about them is that the school district's engineer went back and took a look at the plans that the township had provided to us, made a number of comments, worked through with the township's engineer and planner, and made sure that those comments were incorporated on the plans. So the set of plans that are associated with those easement documents are the most recent set that includes the comments of the engineer. And he had sent a letter in, I guess about a week ago, maybe even a little bit longer than a week ago, setting forth that he believed that all of his comments were met and addressed in the planning documents. And so and I had other conversations with the township solicitor about, flexibility with respect to the plantings and so forth. And the township is willing to, try to work with us on that as far as, how we go about addressing some of the issues with that is concerned. We don't really have time to create a whole new plan, like a plan document showing all of the, every place where the trees are. But, there is some flexibility there that, we can agree to between ourselves as we go through the project. So, I mean, it's pretty much, the township didn't make any changes to it. So it's pretty much the documents that the board had looked at before and previously reviewed with all of the protections that are in there for the district. And the last thing I would like to point out is that these documents were submitted to PennDOT for review, and PennDOT has not expressly come out and said they approved them. However, they've also not come out and said that they're opposed to them. So, from our perspective, we believe that, everything that we could have done to protect the district has been done in those documents to move forward with this project. And we'll just see, whether ultimately PennDOT does sign off on them or not. But if PennDOT decides to pull the plug on this, it won't be because of the fault of either the township or the school district.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I know you took to heart all of the comments that the board had, and I appreciate you were able to negotiate every one of them for us. So I really, really appreciate that. Nancy.
I just have one quick clarification, and it's probably because I am not a lawyer, but the advance notice of acquisition, I noticed there was a statement in the last sentence that concerning the purchase of the school district's property. Is that purely just the way it's worded? Because my understanding is that this is purely an easement.
Yeah, well, that particular document, that advance notice of acquisition, isn't a document that we have to sign. If you look at the bottom of that document, that's just something that the township has to send, and it's a form notice that PennDOT requires to be sent out in connection with land condemnations. And so the township just has to sign that, give it to us, and show PennDOT we gave the notice that we're required to give. So that the language in that document isn't something that we negotiate or that we need to worry about, because it's not something that we even sign or agree to.
Perfect, thank you.
So last time, a couple of years ago, when this kind of took a big change, it was because of PennDOT. They came in, I believe, and said, oh, we need, 100 feet where we had said 20 or whatever. Is it likely, I mean, I know this hasn't gone by PennDOT. Is it likely that that's going to occur again? I mean, that's where we ran into problems, a few years ago.
Well, a couple of years ago, we had put together documents, and then we were about to execute those documents, and we were told that we could not execute those documents because it would run afoul of some of the regulations dealing with the grant agreements. And so that's what kind of put that on hold. Is it possible that PennDOT might look at these easement agreements and say, we're not comfortable with these easement agreements? Yeah, that's possible. And if that would happen, then the project wouldn't be able to move forward, because as I understand it from the township, unless these documents are approved this month and it gets into the submission process, will fall outside of the scope of the period when the grant money is available. And so once the grant money goes away, then that's going to be a problem for the trail as a whole. And so that's why I said, if PennDOT does pull the plug on this, it won't be because the school district or the township didn't try as hard as we could to get this put together and get PennDOT to approve them. I mean, they've had these documents for weeks now, and we haven't heard a thing from them. So, I can only assume that they haven't responded because they didn't see anything that alarmed them.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mike. I know you worked really hard on this. And of course, I have one more question about trees. So we, at one point, were going to ask the township if we could get some more larger trees committed into the contract. Did anybody ever follow up on that?
Yeah.
occurred with our meeting with Steve Marcini at one point?
I did follow up on that, and I had a discussion with the township's council about that. And the issue is, once you move into larger trees are more prone to die when they're transplanted than smaller trees. Additionally, even though there is a specific plan setting forth exactly where these trees will go, throughout the process and the planting, the township has indicated that they'd be willing to work with us on, adjusting the trees and that sort of thing. So, I don't believe that it's going to be a problem as far as, trying to, make sure that we have it the way that we want it as far as the appeal is concerned. But as far as getting larger trees, once you start moving into those larger sizes, the rate of die-off is much higher. And that's going to just create more problems, because then as those trees die, they would need to be replaced with new ones. Whereas if you put in smaller ones originally and they have an opportunity to grow, by the time you might get one that it ultimately stays and lives, the smaller tree might have already grown to that size anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you for following up on that. I appreciate that.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I'd just like also to thank Mr. Christofko for all the work he has put into this. And then, although he's not in the meeting with us tonight, also Mr. Cadzo from ELA has been, I think he went above and beyond. I know he understood right off the importance of getting this right for us too. And I think he battled on that front also, Lydia, for the trees, the plantings, for the easement rights and everything. So you had two really great folks in our corner. And I'm, from somebody that didn't know anything about the TAP trail 3 months ago, I'm really impressed where it's gotten to now. And again, as Mike said, I think we've done everything we could do. And then it's kind of in PennDOT's hands at this point. If we decide next week to support this and move it forward.
Great. So do I have support for both 4.3 and 4.4 to move the easement agreement and the waiver of right document ahead to the full board next week? Okay, I'm going to take those head nods. I think that's everything on our agenda. Does anyone have any new business to raise this month? Oh, okay. Mr. Petiti has he dropped off? Do you know, is there any public comment? Oh, okay, great. You just aren't showing on my screen.
Yes, no public comment.
Okay, great. Well then, I think we will adjourn. I do not believe that we have a July meeting scheduled, but that could change based on how busy we are. So I would suggest that members of the public who are interested in what we're doing follow the district website for any updates to our committee schedule. Otherwise, we will reconvene this group in August. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys.